Oh, hey. Welcome back. It's been a while since we posted an episode. This will actually be the final episode of Season 1. We're going to start Season 2. I've already filmed a lot of the footage, and I'm just putting it all together, and then we'll kind of get into that at the end of this episode. But what we've got to look at here is what's going on here. How much stuff do we've got going on? How many projects are going on? If you're working on projects yourself, maybe it's about clearing your mind. Free your mind! Finding one project, tackling it, and getting it done. I find myself doing that periodically throughout the year, and what I do is I just clean house, get everything put away, even put away projects that are mid-project into a bin that's basically just a projects bin. And as I go through those, I just try to churn through and get them done. I've done some custom painting for my dad, I've done some custom painting and decals for a few other people, and with that, those projects kind of sidetrack what I'm doing, as well as kind of add to the chaos that's here. Some of the projects that are in this pile are from projects that I've been working on. So as I clean this space up, I am going to show you a few of the projects that I'm in progress of, some of the things that I am doing, as well as what we're going to do in the future. So might as well get started and get this stuff cleaned up. Here's one of the projects, and this is actually going to be a streamlined passenger car. This is one for my dad. You can see I've painted the people, I've done the interior, and it's mid-process. I'm putting lights in it and all that stuff. I'll show you a prototype of it too so you can get an idea of what this is going to be, but you may not see the final product of this particular piece, but it's one of the many projects I've been working on. Here's another one. This is an M&S. It was a GMC M&S, but this is actually a Chevy I got. Greg Dixon, he provided me a cast of the cab. I'm using an Athearn chassis, and obviously this is an Athearn back. I got some more modifying yet to do, but this particular piece, I think it'll be cool. I'll do a little feature on casting, as well as just kind of this customization of some of this type of stuff. Like I had to make my own windshield that'll go in here. Little cool little truck, and you'll see how it turns out in a later episode. I know I've mentioned decals in the past. This is actually a set of custom decals I've been working with. I just did a Minnesota commercial set that actually is a former Minnesota transfer set. I did some SW1500s. They're not out of their boxes at the moment, otherwise I'd show them to you. I may have mentioned them in the past, but that's what these are. Kind of fun to do some one-off pieces that make your railroad just that much more unique. Kind of another neat little thing is I found these cases at a trade show that I was at, and they're just a hard side plastic case. I always put all my decals in it because it just makes for a nice place to store them. I throw them in there. If anybody wants to know, you got decals, anything I need, any number I need, I usually am able to find something out of this mix. Majority of it is SOO Milwaukee Road, but I'm able to toss them then into the case, boom, and I'll put them on the shelf, and they're with the other stuff that I've got in these similar cases. So if you find some of that stuff, it's kind of worth picking up. Here's another one. Is actually it's an end marker. I'm in the process of making the lens for this little tiny micro LED inside there, and it'll be a tail car on the Gopher Badger, which again is Great Northern. It was that passenger car I mentioned earlier. But another cool little detail. It's a Details West Mars light. I modified it and then obviously ran the LED into it, and we'll light that up. So maybe we'll have to show you that one when we get to that point. I tell you, as I clean up, I realize I got a lot of stuff I've been working on for my dad, but we were actually installing actual signals on his railroad, and these are some dummy signals that work great in staging. We use them in the helix. So if there's a chance I can get a video of these things in action, I'll throw those up, but it won't be under the SOO The Milwaukee Road. I might just put it under GN videos or something of that nature in my channel. So if you see that pop up, that's what this is in regards to, and that's what these are for. But cool stuff. Alright, here's another interesting flat car load. I've got a few Tossie flats that I've purchased, but I wanted to put a load on it, and what it is, it's actually these little trailers, and they don't have an interior. Of course, you figure as a modeler, you'd like to add an interior. So that's what we've got here. We've got a little table. I've used some seats that I had a bus that I modified, and a countertop that's actually the top of the bus, some wheel wells. Again, nothing overly fancy. You got something that's just that small, but it adds just a nice little detail when the thing is sitting on the flat car and people might be looking at it sitting in a yard or something. Yeah, real quick, here's the maker of this trailer. That's who made this particular one. I'll get it all painted up once it's done. Here are the bus seats that I used. They're out of a Bluebird bus, and this is the top. I had cut one and made it into kind of a shorter bus. So that's what these particular pieces are. Alright, here's a cool little, this is a scale car. Obviously it's pretty small. You can see it's tiny. This one is actually a brass HO scale made by Sunset Models. You can find them on eBay periodically. Just search Sunset Models scale test car or something of that nature. This one I custom painted. They are generally black, but I stripped it. I added a few more details, soldered on a few new pieces, and then put the decals that would kind of match what the BN did. I did do a couple of them out of Walther's kits. I ended up doing a set of SOO Milwaukee Road. I think I may have mentioned these ones earlier, but this is just the Walthers. They're plastic. There are weights inside them. They could probably be a little bit heavier. I put metal wheels on these, as well as KD couplers, and then also added a few of the additional details. Theirs are not separate grabs. I shaved them off and then added these grabs. So that's just another little detail, but modeling is half the fun of it, right? Boy, I know I've covered a lot of 187 scale vehicles. Here's another one. I'm in the process of modifying one of them to look like this here. Alright, you probably can't see it all that well, but this here is just one of the, what are they? Classic metal works, but they're not metal. These are actually plastic ones. They pop apart real easy. You can change out wheels, you can change out interiors, you can add people. There's a lot of things that you can do to some of these scale vehicles, and I've kind of gotten a little bit more obsessed with these just because it kind of adds a little bit more to the scenes. As I go to other guys' railroads and they have finished scenes, I think it's cool to look at some of those type of details. It might be just doing the door handle silver. It might just be blackening in the grill. It may be swapping out wheels with another vehicle to make it look a little bit more modern or older. And those simple little things, it's a small little project. This one that I just started the other day, I'm probably going to have maybe, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half into it. So with that said, you can do some very basic things to be able to do, unique things that catch the people's eye when they are looking at just different scenes in your railroad. So that's what this particular one is. All right, here's a couple cool things. If you ever want to do brake car truck maintenance, pretty simple. Things I always use, KD standard gauge. And what that is doing is it's giving me the exact coupler height as well as the trip pins, making sure that they clear magnets if you use them. And it's a very simple little tool, but a KD coupler height. And there's actually a little pin, you can kind of see it pop up here. And this little pin that's popping up, it pops up when you slide it over your magnet. And you don't want to have something sitting too high. You want it to actually just sit level there. So when it goes underneath, you can see you have the right height for your magnet. So it's got a lot of cool little things to be able to identify exactly what you need to do to make sure your coupler heights are the right height, make sure your magnets are sitting at the right height. Very cool to have. In addition to that, I use for truck maintenance is a reamer. It's actually made by Micromark. This is a very simple product, and I use it semi-annually, not a lot, and you don't want to overuse it, but it actually has a cutting edge on it, and you can see it here, and it spins inside the journal. So you take your wheel out, you put this in, and you lightly spin it with putting a little bit of pressure on the frame to be able to clear out any extra flash that may be during the molding process that the manufacturer had done. So very cool tool. Another one I don't use as often either, but if you do have older Athearn cars that have that metal clip-on clip to be able to hold a coupler in, this is what I use. And what it is, it's made by A-Line. It's got a hole through the center, and it's basically to be able to center drill. When you take off that metal clip on an Athearn car, you can then slide this right over that little pin that's inside there and run a drill right down through and put actually a nice centered hole. And then you'll end up being able to thread that, put your metal clip back on, and then put a screw on. That holds it on. It stops the coupler from wanting to flop around or walk around. Sometimes you might break the little clip on the side of the metal clip, the plastic that you snap it onto. Sometimes gets worn out. Very cool tool to have. Again, that was A-Line. I don't remember the product number, but it's a good one good to have on hand. I do separate grabs on a lot of things, and I ended up picking up A-Line, or not A-Line, Broadway Limited? No, BLMA models. And this I do have the number to. BLMA, no longer in existence. You might find NOS or New Old Stock. Atlas may carry these. I can't say that for sure in the future because they did purchase BLMA. Very cool tool. Template. It is this little template that has these little tiny holes in it that are able to drill and make sure your grabs are the right distance apart as well as square. And that's what's key. So you're not wonky on the car. You can square it up, drill your holes, and you can set nice grab irons into a locomotive or a freight car. And then lastly, this one's huge. It's a coupler or a standards gauge, HO scale standard gauge. It tells you, wheel tread width. You're looking at track width. You're looking at spacing. There's flanges. The height of this to be able to give clearance through a tunnel. A lot of cool little elements that are on one little piece, and I use it all the time when I'm working with track, when I'm working with freight cars, to be able to test the gauge. If you have a locomotive tracking funny, those axles actually are pressed together, and this is able to tell you the correct distance they should be apart. So you can just check that, see if they're too wide, too short. That might also be an issue why a truck or a locomotive might be derailing. So those are cool tools that I use, but let's get back to cleaning up here. Real quick on detail parts, there's little extra grab irons that go onto these flat cars. Keep them together. Always keep them together. Tape them to the thing. I know a lot of times manufacturer does. The best thing you can do is keep them together just in case that time comes when you decide to do the project. They got to stay together. A little piece of hardware. This is actually a CP Rail GP9. It was renumbered, and picked it up at a show. Kind of cool. I have built surrounds for them that light up. I put one above my my little guy's bed, so it's one of those things that, don't need it probably. It's kind of cool. If this is your house address, give me a call. People. Trains are kind of, a big part of what we do, but at the same time, this is just a box of people that I realize you have to hand paint them and it takes some time. But all right, if you're sitting down watching a show or maybe watching a ball game, you can just sit down and knock a few out. The price are actually a pretty nice little, facial, features and stuff on small people, but it definitely adds something to your scene. Add people to your scene. It gives some interest, and this is a good way to do it, and not very expensive. And when I say not very expensive, these are when they're painted, but you can come across these for the guys that don't want to paint them. I think I got this for $10, not bad. When I say add people, maybe not these guys, they're not quite to scale. I've got little people, and these actually are little people. They're fun for the kids, but not necessarily HO scale. They look a little big. This is a random tangent, but the GBW Husky hopper, they had a bunch of these. They used them for ballast movements, but I decided to go scale, and I actually ended up with an exact rail car, chopped it up, and it's in the process of making its way to one of the Husky hoppers. So kind of cool. It's a little out of the ordinary. Is it with the SOO and the Milwaukee Road? Not necessarily, but don't really care. Man, am I hot. Might be kind of a shameless plug, but if you're not a member of a historical society, at least pick up their magazines when you can. I do periodically. This one actually has, it's on signaling, and for anybody that thinks, signaling is way too much, there's always this guy here. You'll be able to understand signaling, or at least try and understand signaling. Pretty cool. It's a great two-part magazine. This is the SOO line. Volume number 1, volume number 2, spring of 2018, winter 2018. They might be on your book stands right now. If they aren't, you may locate them at shows. Fantastic reading material. No matter what your road is, I know Chicago Northwestern has a historical society. It's totally worth checking out. The Milwaukee Road has one. I pick up issues as I see fit, and if there's an opportunity to donate to your local historical society, whether it's your time or into magazines, totally worth it. All right, packing up this little gem. It's actually kind of cool. It's I believe it's Moondog Rails or Moondog Models. This gentleman does these custom cars. The load is what I was originally going for, just to kind of see what other modelers do. You invest a little to learn a little. It's totally worth it. Extremely nice guy that does these. Communication was fantastic, and the car itself, not bad. This particular model he did have on sale, which I think from a reasonable standpoint, to have somebody weather and model a car for you, I want to say it was under 30 bucks, which you can't complain about. But again, watch for sales, but his regular priced items are cool for what they are. Art takes time, and it's totally worth it if you're saying, oh, I don't have the talent to do it. Some people do, and they sell them. So if you can pick one up, it's totally worth it. Paint combinations. These are actually true color paint. Fellow modeler Jeff Lemke, he does a lot of custom painted brass. He gave me a good ratio on doing the stripe on the Big Sky Blue Great Northern car that I mentioned earlier. Learning a lot of those different trades, they may seem intimidating off the start, but man, once you start to get them down, totally worth it. Alright, one more thing real quick. I did get these Plano front grills, and it's kind of cool to be able to swap out, say, a grill. This is a Ford, but a lot of them have very similar characteristics, and you might be able to modify one to make it look like a Mack truck or another truck of choice. Ask a lot of guys out of the 187 scale group if you ever talk to guys that are kind of kind of cross modeling, if you will. I do a lot of that just because I think the cool 187 scale vehicles and modeling that I see them doing, I'm able to apply to my railroad, so it's kind of neat. Yeah, another cool thing, paint markers. Paint markers, there's so many different paint markers out there, different manufacturers. You shake them, they've got a ball in there. A lot of them are oil-based. I use that on, maybe if this truck was white, it might be the trim around a window. I might do a little detail on a strap or something that would be on a vehicle or a freight car. I know my dad uses them rust colored. There are different ones out there for doing the sides of your rails. If you're ever at a railroad and you're looking at it from the side and a light is behind you, a lot of times you get a real glare off the side rail. And by taking one of these, something pretty simple is just going along and knocking that edge off, and of course cleaning the top of your rail, but knocking that edge off gives a little bit more realism when you're looking at it. You don't get that glare that kind of bounces back. That might give it kind of a toy effect. As I mentioned, they have a few colors. This is just a super multi-pack. Michaels or Joann Fabrics or even Hobby Lobby type places carry these things. When you tell them what you're using it for, they might have no clue. But I want to use it on my model train track. When you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, well, however old you are, might look at you like you're crazy, but once you find them, makes for a cool tool to have in your arsenal. More Decoders. This is another project. These are Wow Sound kits. Wow Sound kits I've been a huge fan of, mainly because they have a keep alive in them, which allows the locomotive to keep moving if it goes across maybe a dead frog or a bad piece of track. Don't rely on that to be your overcome. Fix the problem on the railroad before you decide that this is the solution. Main reason I've always kind of liked this is whether it's lights or beacons or anything that you might have it cut out just momentarily. You might lose the light being on, or you might have something happen with the decoder, so it's kind of nice. Loc Sound, they have a very similar type of system that you can solder onto their boards too. They're fantastic. There's a lot of great decoder manufacturers, but these have been nice because, man, I can usually fly it through. I can put one of these in a lot of times in 20 minutes to a half hour, and I'm not joking. I did a video on this. Hopefully we'll get it into one of the episodes here in Season 2. SW1500, former M&S. I know I mentioned M&S. The SOO line acquired them in 1980 or 82, somewhere in that range. And obviously this one, former M&S, but in SOO line. Just if they do it in M&S paint. They'll do one once I custom paint one. Here's a quick little hack. I actually learned this online. Was just putting a tab that I'm able to pull out. If you see the screen, when I pull it out, this goes live. It turns on. I can just simply slide this back in. It turns off. I have a few of them sitting here just along the railroad that I'm able to grab at any time. I got a red one, I got a blue one here, and that saves my battery when I walk away. And two, it's pretty simple. Now I'm able to use it. I just wish that they would have had just a simple on-off switch that we'd be able to flip on and off, but that doesn't seem to be the case with these guys. I don't know about NCE, they might have that. Turnout switches, I don't throw them away. I bought some used turnouts. Somebody out there is able to use these, so usually I list them online. eBay is a great place to sell stuff, but Facebook Marketplace, and there's a few other avenues that you're able to sell things, as well as your local flea market or just somebody that you might know. Another gauge, this is a track gauge. I'm using it for laying this yard, keep stuff straight. It's kind of nice to have. I have a few other ones. I don't know where they're at now. Found them. This is what I use for spacing my track. It's a very simple, put it on the rails. It keeps the distance all the way, and I can slide that down as I move along. It's nice to have. This one I use for soldering. There's a few others in here, but I have just a track laying kit. As I mentioned before, I had that other case. I put all these together, boom, laying track, got it. I'm going to do decals, go grab the bin. Biggest thing is once you have them all out, sometimes it's time just to put them away. Real quick one. This is a Walther's scale car. Now, I dropped it into isopropyl alcohol. It's very quick and easy to do. You fill up just a little bit in a plastic container, drop the model in there, whatever the paint scheme, probably about, I don't know, take an hour, a half hour, whatever the time is. You can take a toothbrush and just start brushing it off, and that paint will come off and you'll be down to the bare plastic. And you can shave off your grabs, sand them down a little bit, and then re-drill your holes and put those in. The holes that were drilled, I used that BLMA template to be able to make sure that my grabs are square and straight. So, nice little tip. This is a Trident pickup, stripped. Just dropped it into the alcohol. It had some graphics on it, and I'm just going to shoot it into a different color and obviously finish it off, but kind of cool. You like your own logos or graphics? This is actually a magnet that I'm able to stick onto the refrigerator or the furnace or whatever I might want. I have my daughter, his name is Alexis. I did a modified, it's a Great Northern logo. She's big into giraffes. I obviously just put her name on that, which is kind of cool, and I stick that there on, just on the furnace. But this is pretty simple. All I'm doing is I'm printing a photo, and they have a roll of magnet at Michael's or Joann's or whoever it is that had it, but it's a roll-out piece. Put it on there, cut it out, custom magnet, kind of neat. And actually this one belongs on this kick stool. I don't know where I had been sticking it, but basically this way. There, and I end up having a customized stool. Alright, for the most part the yard is clean. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab the vacuum. I use a bagless vac to start, just so I can suck everything up off the yard, and any little pieces that might have fallen off of a freight car, I won't lose those. I'll be able to look in the little bin and see if they're there. I am leaving this project out. This is the one that I was working on for my dad. I'm custom painting that passenger car. Once it's done, obviously it's going to go into the box and I'll go over to his house and be on his railroad. But in general, I got everything cleared out here. I'm going to put these away. I have them sorted into sale items and into project items. There's a few cars in there that I'm selling. So that's kind of what I do when I get into this process. And we'll just move a few more things and then we'll close this episode out. Alright, I forgot the vacuum. Alright, grab the vacuum. Pretty simple here. Empty the canister so it's empty. And then I'm going to go through and get this thing cleaned. Since I cleaned myself up, I figured at least I could do is finish cleaning this up, and then we'll close out this episode. So let's suck up any of the debris. Alright, there we go. Pretty simple. I'm going to empty this out onto a white piece of paper or a paper towel. Look through and see if there's any debris in there. If you don't have a canless or a bagless vac, you can always just put like a sock or pantyhose over the end of a vacuum and then start sucking an area up, and then just obviously your debris is going to be caught on the face of the actual sock. So something to consider if you don't have a bagless vac. But other than that, the future for the upcoming episodes, this is the end of Season 1. So Season 2, we're going to cover the SD40-2 that I mentioned, Bob Rivard's. We're going to also dive into some of the 187 scale casting or resin casting. I have to do an auto rack facility that I need a lot of the certain type of trucks. So we're going to dive into that. When I dive into it, I'll document it. And that's the biggest thing about this particular series. I'm just doing this to document what I'm doing and building the process. As I said in the opener, is that this is for you guys. This is for people to learn what type of things are out there to be able to use. It's not the absolute answer. These are not final solutions. They're just a solution for people to use. So with that said, the future episodes that are coming up, I'm going to update you on what is actually happening with the progress of the railroad. This is a transfer yard, and the transfer yard is going to be BN, Chicago Northwestern, and other railroads that are transferring with the Milwaukee Road or SOO line. And with that said, we'll dive into that in the future episodes. So updates on the railroad itself are coming. I do have an elevator district that I'm in the process of working on, and that'll be in there as well. So keep an eye out for future episodes. Tell family, friends, or anybody that might be interested in the hobby to check this channel out. The only thing that this really drives is just people that are viewing. If nobody's watching, why even bother making it? But at the end of the day, if there's a couple guys that are able to benefit from it, awesome. So thanks a lot for watching this episode of SOO The Milwaukee Road. I'm going to head out. I have to go pick up a little one. I've got 3 little kids, and one of them's at school and needs to get back home. So take care.